Hey, welcome. Have you ever felt like you're just working incredibly hard, but you're not really getting anywhere? Like you're stuck in this loop, this cycle of struggle, even when you're giving it absolutely everything you've got? Well, today we're going to explore a really powerful idea that points to a totally different path, one with a whole lot less resistance and way more joy. It's a question that I think so many of us feel deep down, right? Why does life sometimes feel like such an uphill battle? We're constantly rowing, putting in all this effort, and at the end of the day, we just feel exhausted and stuck. Turns out there's a simple but kind of brilliant metaphor that explains this feeling perfectly. So imagine your life is a boat floating on a great big river. Now, this river isn't just random water, it has a current. And that current, it represents the fundamental principles of life. The natural way things are supposed to flow. It's always moving, always going somewhere, whether we pay attention to it or not. And here's what's so powerful about that idea. If your boat is pointed in the same direction as the current, the journey is simple, it's almost effortless, you just glide forward. But what happens if you try to row upstream against those natural principles? Well, that's when the struggle starts. Every single inch of progress takes this immense effort. And the second you stop rowing, you start drifting right back. The material we're looking at suggests that most of us were unknowingly rowing against the current. But here's the twist. The problem, it isn't the river. The reason we're fighting the current isn't because of our job or our boss or the economy. It's because of something inside of us. Let's call them the 6 inner chains. I want you to think of yourself as this powerful rocket, okay? You're fueled up, you're ready for takeoff, but you're held down by 6 super heavy chains. The engine is roaring, all that potential is right there, but you just can't lift off because these self-imposed barriers are literally anchoring you to the ground. So what are these chains? Here they are. First, trivializing yourself. That little voice that says you're just ordinary, nothing special. Then you've got the classic fears, right? The fear of failure and the fear of what other people will say. And then there are the lack chains, feeling like you don't have the resources, you don't have the knowledge, or you don't even have a clear vision for where you're going. These 6 chains create this kind of cocoon around our potential. And the thing is, they can only be broken from the inside. Okay, so how in the world do we break these chains? Well, it's not by pulling on them harder. Instead, we use a really simple but profound concept called the principle of light. And this is a fundamental shift that can honestly change everything. Let me just ask you a super simple question. If you walk into a pitch black room, how do you get rid of the darkness? Do you grab a bucket and try to scoop it out? Do you open a window and try to fan it away with a piece of cardboard? Of course not, right? The answer is incredibly simple. You don't fight the darkness. You just bring in the light. You flip a switch. And that's the whole principle right there. The old way is to focus on our problems, to try and fight and scoop out the darkness. The new way, stop fighting the problem and instead just introduce the solution. This is the big aha moment. Our problems, those 6 inner chains we talked about, our fears, our self-doubt, that's the darkness. And trying to get rid of them directly is exhausting. And let's be honest, it doesn't really work. The key is to shift our focus completely. Instead of trying to get rid of our weaknesses, we start actively building our strengths. We bring in the light. Okay, so that sounds good in theory, but how do we actually apply this in a practical way? Let's use another really powerful metaphor, your house of life. This is going to help us see where that darkness usually shows up. Just picture it. Our life can be seen as a house with 4 key parts. The foundation, the thing everything rests on, that's our inner self, our peace of mind, our core being. Then you have 2 big pillars holding everything up, our health on one side and our relationships on the other. And finally, the roof over our heads, protecting us, is our finances. These 4 areas, they're the whole structure of our life. And here's why this metaphor works so well. All of these parts are connected. If you have a crack in the foundation, say a lot of anxiety or self-doubt, it's going to put stress on the pillars of your health and your relationships. And if one of those pillars starts to crumble, it's going to be really hard to support the roof of your finances. The darkness can seep into any room. And you know how it is. Trouble in one area just quickly spreads to all the others. So if our problems are the darkness creeping into our house, then what's the light? This is where we finally get to the solution. The light that we need to bring in comes in the form of what the source material calls the 7 kinds of comprehensive wealth. Because as you can see here, wealth is so much more than just money.
True comprehensive wealth actually has 7 different aspects. Yeah, there are the material things we usually think of, our skills and competence, our physical health, and our possessions or finances. But the true foundation, the real heavy hitters, are the non-material things, our wisdom, our mindset, our character, and our inner qualities.
So the goal then is to cultivate this comprehensive wealth. It's a holistic state of being rich in those intangible inner assets as well as the tangible outer ones. Think about it. A person with tons of money but no inner peace isn't truly wealthy. And a person with a great mindset but terrible health is also missing a huge piece of the puzzle. It's all about building all 7. And honestly, this is a total game changer. So often, we define our value by our material wealth, right? Our job title, our skills, how much is in our bank account. But by focusing on building our non-material wealth, our wisdom, our mindset, our character, we actually increase our true intrinsic value. This inner richness is the light that just automatically pushes out the darkness of self-doubt and fear. When you focus on building this inner wealth, it creates a completely new path to growth. Instead of waiting around for a crisis to force you to change, you can choose a proactive path, the path of growing through wisdom. The source material offers this really powerful idea. It says that life sends us hardships to teach us lessons. But what if we didn't have to wait for the hardship? What if we could just learn the lesson proactively? We don't need to be broken down just to build ourselves back up again. So what this all really comes down to is a choice. You don't have to wait for your boat to crash into the rocks or for the roof of your house to cave in. By consciously, intentionally cultivating these 7 aspects of wealth, you are choosing to grow through wisdom, not through suffering. You're choosing to bring in the light before the darkness even has a chance to settle in. This whole approach is about taking back control of your own growth in a positive, empowering way. So, the question I want to leave you with is this. Looking at those 7 kinds of wealth, which one will be the first light you consciously decide to turn on in your life, starting today?